Hey guys, welcome back for another month. I don't know if you can quite believe it. I can barely believe it that I've got April up on that board here. This year really is zooming past incredibly quickly, and it's all coming to a head very fast. So as always, I'm super glad that you're here to join me. We do have some cool stuff to go over today, and I did want to start on a bright note, which is the Garmin API application has been lodged this month. So I'm very excited about that. I've finally stopped being lazy, finally put some work in and actually lodged that application, which means that next month, fingers crossed, that application comes through and I'll have some really cool reporting to show you guys. But what I really wanted to talk about is injury month. And I've got to be honest with you guys, April has been a really tough month for me. Both physically and then consequently mentally as well. I've had a few injuries that have plagued the month and really the start of the year. Things haven't quite gone to plan as I would like them. So I thought I'd take you guys through my experience at the moment. What are my problems? What am I doing to get past them? And how am I using this to sort of fuel that goal at the end of the year and still try and run that 100K at a time that I'm going to be happy with. So without wasting any more time, let's just jump straight into it. So this is what I wanted to go over, guys. It is a new report. As always, it is live on the Data Insights website if you want to check it out and get a little bit more detail about what I'm talking about. But what are we actually looking at? We've got a couple of graphs here, and to give you guys a little bit of context, this top one, all it does is it plots the distance of every run that I've been on this year. On the y-axis, and then on the x-axis we've just got the dates, so you can try and get a picture of how much I've run over the course of this year. And the one below it is running off the same date, so you can sort of line the two up vertically, and what that's tracking is my running confidence. And my running confidence is just the score out of 10 that my physio recommended that I record, and it's just trying to track how confident am I at any given time to go out for a run. And then on the right here, because this page is completely focused around my running health, I've just got a list of all the different injuries that I've sort of sustained throughout a run. And so if I'm out on a run and I feel that something isn't quite right, what I'll do is I'll record an injury. I'll basically say what was the body part, what was the intensity, and a little bit of detail around it. And this should sort of work to sort of give a picture of what the year's been like and where it's all kind of gone a little bit pear-shaped for me, which isn't fantastic. So I don't know if you guys remember all the way back to January in my first vlog, I said I was coming off an injury, and sort of you can see my year building up early there in January. I started very slow. On this graph, by the way, I forgot to mention the colors of the bars just relate to the count of injuries that I had over the course of that run. So if you see a green run, it means that nothing was wrong. If you see a yellow, it means that I had one injury. And if you see red, it means that I have two or more. It doesn't relate to the intensity of the injury at all, but it's just to give you a picture that something was wrong. And so you can see in Jan, I'm nice and green. I'm sort of stepping up the distances of the runs. And this is when I was really falling in love with long distance running. I don't know if you guys remember back in Feb when I posted a video of my run at Enoggera. That's really where I fell in love with long distance trail running. I was really in a great place mentally. And then things started to go a little bit awry here in March. So I picked up another injury, and you can see that my running confidence absolutely plummeted at that point. And that was sort of the first of a long line of injuries that I've had throughout the year. And the thing that's really frustrated me is none of them have been really significant injuries. I've not torn anything, I've not broken anything. All it's been is little niggling injuries to the hamstring, to my adductor, to my calf. Any little thing that's happened hasn't been on a big scale, but it's been just enough to sort of keep me out of running for a little bit and sort of frustrate me mentally. And so that's what you're seeing there. You can see at the start of March, I copped an injury, and then I sort of slowly started coming back, stepped it up again. I intensified my running. Where I actually went wrong and where I sort of really frustrated myself with is I went on 7 runs in a row, 7 days in a row, and that's really why you can see that this area in April is very blank. I did cause myself a problem with my left adductor, and you can sort of track it here. You can see I start complaining about it. I think I actually labeled it as my left hamstring and then my left adductor, and that's really where the problems have come in. And the frustrating part about that is I got myself into a cycle of getting injured and then trying to recover, going back a few days too early, and then injuring myself again for a couple of days. And what that's done is it's just stopped me from upping the distance. So when I wanted my running to continue in this sort of pattern, what it's actually done is gone up and down and up and down, and now it's been really, really shaky. I've really not accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and so it's really frustrated me mentally, guys. And I sort of wanted to dive in a little bit deeper around what's been happening and what's been causing this, why I've been so irresponsible with going back, and why I've gotten the results I've gotten. So now that we've seen the data behind it, I did want to take you guys through what it actually looks like in my mind and map that out a little bit more. So let's have a look at that. So this is what I'm calling my negative feedback loop. And I am stealing the terminology from psychology slightly. I hope I'm using it correctly, but if I'm not, feel free to correct me. More than happy to take that feedback on board. But I hope it does give you guys a little bit more context around the frustration of the injury and how it's caused me to sort of go back to running early again and again and again and just cause myself some more problems. I'm sure among you guys, you will be able to relate, especially to those of you that play sport and do running. Injury is incredibly frustrating. As someone who loves the sport that they do, there's nothing that you want more than just to be out there and doing it. And being at home, losing your fitness, not being able to do the thing that you love is just really, really burdensome on your mental health. And so I hope this gives you a little bit more context of what I've been going through with my injuries. And let me know if you can relate as well. Let me know if you're going through a similar thing. I'd love to connect and chat about it because I do find it really interesting to see how other people are tackling this problem. But it all starts with an injury. So like I said, I've copped a few different injuries, little niggles here and there to different parts of my body. And that's how it always starts. Nothing super complicated there. But that causes me to lose training time. And in my context, it's not exactly like I just like running and I do it for the fun of it and there's no deadlines. I've made myself a very public deadline of running 100 kilometers in October. And so being someone so inexperienced, being someone completely out of the ultramarathon community before the last, well, literally since January, I need all the training time that I can get. And so I know that I've lost a fair bit as soon as I get injured, and that starts playing into my mind very, very early. As soon as I finish a run and I know that I'm injured, that's the first thing that I'm thinking about, is my 9 months or 10 months that I originally had shortened, and every time it's becoming shorter. That leads to increased anxiety. And so for me, this challenge is the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges that I've ever taken on in my life. And so there'll be times where I'm going to sleep and I'm thinking about the 100K, and all I'm thinking is I can't go out and run tomorrow. And that's incredibly frustrating because I know for myself, my fitness, my cardiovascular fitness is by far at the best it's ever been. And I would so happily go out and run 20, 30 Ks tomorrow if I could. And so falling asleep, knowing that you can't do the thing you love and you're losing time for such a time-sensitive event is really, really anxiety-inducing. And so that's what I've been going through. And then from that, obviously the first thing that you want to do is get back to running. And so that's where the recovery process has started for me. And I've got a great physio, an old friend of mine that I've been working with, and he's been fantastic in trying to get me back up to shape, giving me plenty of exercises, plenty of advice. And so this is where I go to straight away, is I want to get back to running as quickly as possible. So I push that as much as I can. From there, the time pressure just increases. So if I'm going through the recovery process and I'm 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 days in, every day that I don't run, I just keep thinking that it's another day I don't get to train. And so that keeps playing on my mind. It keeps becoming a little bit more tempting to run. And then the next part is the one that really, really hurts. I know it shouldn't, but it really does, is how's the running going? And I get this question posed to me 5 or 6 times a week by different people. People that I haven't seen for a while. The first thing that I get asked, or eventually in the conversation I get asked, is how's the running going? And I guess from the start of the year, I've built myself an identity, and I really identify as someone who is running 100 kilometers. That is who I am. That is what I'm working towards. And I've worked so hard and will continue to work hard to get there. But when you're having to reply to this question over and over again as I'm injured, it actually starts to shift your identity a bit, and it really plays in mentally, because you go mentally from I'm a 100-kilometer runner to I'm injured. And every time you have to answer that question, it becomes a little bit more difficult. And so again, that's anxiety inducing. It just makes me worry. It's very nerve-wracking. So I honestly hate answering that question. It's something that I'm dealing within myself, and I'm trying to get better and better at managing that. And that actually leads to second guessing the injury. And this is where it gets really, really dangerous in the loop. So it continues round. I've got anxiety. I know the time pressure's there. I'm getting the question posed to me over and over again. And so I'm having to face that reality. And this is where a little bit of second guessing creeps in and where it gets really scary. Is you'll be 4 or 5 days into the injury. You'll think, I'm pretty close to being able to run. And every day that I don't run, I'm wasting time. And so you try and start convincing yourself that maybe I'm actually not injured anymore. And what's really, really difficult, and I've worked with the physio as well to try and get a good handle on my injuries, it's not always cut and dry. And there's a lot to be said in sports around the mentality of injury and going back to the sport with a strong mentality to say, I'm not injured, and the benefit that that actually gives you. Because there is a point where you are injured, you are in a little bit of pain, but it is the right time to go back to the sport. And it's really difficult to say when that time is, but getting it wrong can be really, really detrimental. And that's what I've done time and time again. And so at that point, what I've done is I've prematurely returned to running time and time again. And that has actually closed up the negative feedback loop, which is really unfortunate. So what that does is it just makes me get the injury again. It just refires it again. It's not something super, super substantial. But again, after 4 or 5 days of recovery, getting myself to a point where I can second guess the injury, prematurely go back, and then bang, injury again, back to square one. And the loop continues. The only difference in this loop is now time pressure, there's 4 or 5 days less that I have in the total training time. So again, the anxiety is higher this time round than it is the last time. And with that anxiety higher, it's even more and more tempting to second guess the injury really early. So it's even more likely that I'll go back to return to running early and more likely that I'll get injured. And it's a really, really vicious cycle, guys, and it's really quite worrying. So all my energy now is going to getting out of this loop. I was speaking to a friend recently and I was saying to him exactly what I'm saying to you guys is I just want to train. I just want to run. It's what I love doing. That's the challenge that I signed up for. And he said, well, this is the challenge. Like for you, it might not be the running that's the challenge. For you, it might be keeping fit that's the challenge. And coming off that, I've actually had to reframe in my mind that this is actually the journey right now. This injury process is what's difficult for me. Like, I don't mind getting up at 4:30 in the morning, driving out to Enoggera, doing a run just as the sun's coming up. I love that. I absolutely love that. That's not the difficult part for me. This is the difficult part for me. Keeping fit, keeping mentally strong to make sure I'm not going back too early, and actually being responsible with the running. And so I've reframed my mind to say that this is the process that I have to go through. Sorry, not this process. I'm tossing this process out the window, just by the way, if you were wondering. But I'm reframing the recovery as a challenge in itself and as a part of my training. And so I wanted to show you guys what I'm doing to actually solve this loop. So if we jump over to the next slide, let's have a look at that. So now we get to the important part, guys, the solution. I'm not here to have a pity party. I'm not here to feel bad for myself. I'm here to run 100 kilometers at the end of the year. And the only way that I'm going to get there is by coming up with good solutions. And so I've got 4 of them today. 4 solutions or 4 bits of solutions that are going to help me get over this negative feedback loop, get out of the injury that I'm currently in, back into running, and really hit a good 6 months of training before I do that run on October 16th. And the first part of it is to own the injury and accept the responsibility for it. Like I said previously, it's very easy to sort of second guess the injury and not accept the responsibility, not accept the situation for what it is. But I really do have to be honest with myself right now, guys. I am injured. I am owning that. And I'm going to own the recovery process to actually get over that wall. And so that's the second part of it, is to take the recovery as a challenge. And I think for me, throughout the first sort of 4 or 5 months of this year, I thought of recovery as this sort of side thing that I kind of have to get through to get back into the running. But no, the recovery is a big part of this 100K journey. It was always going to come up. I didn't want it to come up. I didn't really want to believe that injury was going to be a part of this year. I thought that maybe I could be part of that really, really lucky subset of runners that just skated by without an injury. But as I go through this, I can see that that was absolutely foolish. But that's totally fine, because now this is a challenge. And guys, as we speak today, it's the 26th of April. And over the course of the last week, as I've sort of been recovering, not really gone for a run over the last 6 or 7 days, I've been going hard at the stretching and at the adductor strength exercises, doing half-an-hour sessions, even twice a day sometimes. I am smashing this recovery, guys. I'm going to increase the strength. I'm going to increase the strength all across my legs to make sure that these injuries aren't popping back up. And I'm honestly here to smash that recovery. That's what I'm doing now, guys. It's the first time that I'm approaching it. Or maybe it's not even the first time, actually, as I say that. Because this is the other really interesting thing is when I think about my injury at the start of the year, the thing that actually got me out of a rut of probably 6 or 7 weeks with that injury was getting a scan on my leg, figuring out that there wasn't a tear, and actually taking responsibility for doing strength training. And that's what actually let me get on the best run that I've been so far with my training. And so that's what I'm doing again now, guys, is taking it on as a challenge. And as a part of that, the third piece is to set realistic goals around my training. So it was really easy to sort of second guess the injury and just try and get back as soon as possible without any real plans. But now is the time to set realistic goals. I have 100 kilometers to run in about 5.5 months. There is very, very realistic steps that have to be set across that way to get to where I want to get to. Guys, I'm not going to go out and run 20, 30, 40, 50 Ks tomorrow. As much as I would love to and as much as I think my cardiovascular fitness would let me, my body won't. And so I'm going to be realistic about it. And this is where point 4 becomes the most important point, which is getting a running coach on board. And this is where I've really let myself down this year. I said very, very early on, probably as early as January, I said it to my friends even before January kicked off, is that I'd get a running coach on board to actually do this right. And in all honesty, guys, I got a little bit cocky. I said, I'm not going to get the coach on board until my fitness is at least at a decent level. And as I started going through the training, I started feeling really confident. I started feeling really good, and I just got lazy with it. And that's really what's caused me problems, because I know that my running form may not be fantastic. I think that's something that I really need to get sorted out with a proper coach, and then someone to actually help me with point number 3, which is setting realistic goals to try and get towards that end goal. And so this month I will get a running coach on board. We are going to put a plan together of what my running is going to be like over the next 5.5 month training block. And so I'm very excited about that. I think these 4 pieces are really going to help me get over this injury. Guys, this is what I'm going to be working hard at. I'm not the type of person that gives up easily. I know for me, if I have to hobble that 100 kilometers on October 16th, I will do it, but I don't want to do that. I went through my goals a couple months ago. 13 hours was my top goal that I wanted to get throughout this ultra. And as these injuries persist, I can see that sort of slipping further and further. But I'm not going to give up on that goal. I'm going to train as hard as I can. This time I'm going to train as smart as I can. And hopefully that gets better results. So I'm excited about where this is heading. I'm owning the situation, guys. And I think that we're going to get a good result at the end of the day. So stick around for where the journey goes after this, guys. And after that, the last thing that I did want to go through, guys, of what's actually coming up next month. So as we get out of Pity Town with the injury, let's actually look forward to some positives. And so like I just said, I'll be creating a running plan with my running coach over the next month. So I'll share that with you guys. That's the right order. Next month when we jump on. And then the second one is the Gladiator 21K. And so I think this is a very realistic goal. Happens towards the end of May. I think it's the 29th or the 30th off the top of my head. And so that's what I'm going to work towards, is that first sort of, I guess, capstone goal of running 21 kilometers at the end of May. I've sort of calculated out that if I go 21 kilometers in May, 30, 40, 50, 60, that will get me all the way to September if I'm taking 10 kilometer increases every month. And then in October, I should hopefully be able to run the 100. A lot of people do a 64 or so kilometer run before actually doing the 100. And so at that pace, which I think is actually very realistic to be upping 10 kilometers per month, I should still be able to achieve the 100 kilometers at a reasonable time. And so that's where we're going next month. Guys, honestly, it's been a very, very tough month for me, like I said, but within the last 7 days, I've reframed the way I'm thinking. I'm ready to take the challenge on. I hope you're excited to come on the journey with me, because I'm excited to go on it. So stick around. I know next month is going to be a lot happier. You're going to be seeing a lot of smiles. As you know, I'm a naturally happy person, and so I like smiling. So there's going to be a lot more smiling next month, guys. Look out for that. I'll see you there.